This is a big town with a small town mentality. It's been accused of that on many occasions, but I mean, I love this town.
I don't know, it's just a lot of neat bands here. It's just a variety of everything. Every show you go to, it's just, there's always something different.
London's
good.
really
It's a good city. Good city for music, honestly.
It's very hard. It's a lot easier to go from working up in London and then going to Toronto and then being able to come back here without having to break ground.
There's never really that huge competitive thing. Everyone was so supportive and just helping each other get where they needed to be, which is why I think it's thriving.
Mama said, son, go out and clean that yard. Oh, you won't get money for that whiskey bar. Papa said, son, don't you be worried about that yet. Now's the time to live with no regrets.
It was a huge change from Toronto to London in 1969. It was like going out to see the Beverly Hillbillies. It was that bad. It was like going to a hick town. But in the London punk scene, it sort of started as a loft party. I wasn't part of that. You had to be in the know. It was the art community, the art and the gay community that sort of helped the punk community along.
London had a super thriving punk scene here in the 80s.
There's always just been that key element of punk. There's always punk bands coming from London.
The punk movement started late December 77 in London, essentially. That's when the Demics formed and played their first gig. It was at a loft party on Dundas Street. Mike Niederman put that on, so that was the first local punk band, December 77. From there, they played at the York Hotel, which is now called The Office.
Call the Office has a place in my heart. I saw Negative Approach there, which was unbelievable.
Call the Office has a bit of a walk-in. I think it's because it's a long time known bar. It's been around for a long time, and people outside the city will be like, oh yeah, I've heard of Call the Office.
And I tried, it was the Embassy and Call the Office at the same time, and then it was the Salt Lounge, which we had for a while, and Call the Office. And now, with the Blackshire and everything else, it's always really cool because you have a hub for local bands.
Yeah, I came from a hardcore metal type scene, so it was a little different coming into this because when I started out, you didn't really see too many indie rock shows, so I saw these guys. Actually I ran into them in Toronto. I knew Phil from the past, and it was just fell in love with the band, came back to London and realized indie rock kind of came back. It wasn't there when I left. It was definitely a lot of hardcore, a lot of metal, a lot of punk shows, not much else, and it changed, and it's pretty sweet now. You can pretty much, as a band, get a show anywhere, as any genre, so London's grown a lot in the past 5-10 years.
My personal attitude about music is how multifaceted the London music scenes are. So it's super open. Whatever you're into, there's a little home for you.
That's something I've noticed with London too, a lot changed recently since I started going to shows when I was 14 or 15, is that the people in the scene around here has opened up and become more accepting.
The main thing about the London music scene is that it's so incredibly supportive, that everybody in it is really looking out for each other. And I think that's what makes it so different from other scenes. Everybody here is really invested in each other's futures.
And all the bands know each other. And all the promoters know each other too. So whenever there's an event, everybody comes out. It's not just about making personal gain musicians. It's really, really healthy community.
Yeah, and even if say the bands aren't necessarily in your genre, everybody still goes out to support, which is so cool. we had some friends who were in like a metal band who'd always come out to our show and like sing, and then we'd go out to their shows, and so yeah, it was like really, really cool.
But yeah, we have like yeah, like
yeah,
we just
Crash,
make friends.
that's
And, yeah, crash wherever, like help each other out. It's always good. But yeah, we have a lot of friends in London, like Kingpin, Laps area. There's like stuff all over the walls. There's some bands all around.
We've tried to make friends with just about everybody in a band here.
Yeah. There are like a ton of different places in London that like you can play, and a lot of people who are like willing to give you a chance. So London in general is like a really good launching pad.
People in London, like the scene used to be not so nice, but now people actually seem to want to stay around until the end of the shows a lot more, and They're getting compliments too. I find that.
Yeah,
people aren't afraid to. They're not afraid to come up to you and like say how they think your set was, or if like you played like crap that night, they're like, "Oh, last time I saw you guys were sick. This time, yeah, it was okay. Like there was some fuck." It's always great to hear somebody when they come up to you and they say like, "Oh, you guys just keep getting better and better." Like that. I like hearing that. Everybody's comfortable with saying like constructive criticism, so that's pretty cool.
They always like London better because rather than Toronto, who they're all so sophisticated and urbanites and everything, they would just sit and watch. Where, in London it was like crazy dance floors and people, tons of energy, right? That's just radiating off the floor up into the stage. And whereas in Toronto and that, there'd be people at shows, but they weren't they just didn't have that energy that London would have, and bands would always mention that they always wanted to play in London because of the crowds.
It's been a great place to start a band, I'd say.
Yeah.
A lot of like music lovers in this city, which is
there's a really solid community, just kind of like really together, and from there it's just kind of grown.
Yeah, there's a lot of good supporters of the music scene, I think, in London. A lot of promoters and venue owners, and like Colin was saying,
who are committed, and like that's what it takes.
Yeah, and even just like music fans, and like we were talking earlier, like it's not uncommon to go to a show and see members of the crowd from like all different bands, like that aren't playing that night, just like people in bands that go out to see other bands play. Sometimes the genre is like completely different, you know what I mean? But they still go out and check out music. So yeah, London's pretty good. I think pretty lucky in that one.
Smile and said I've never felt better. That can be taken two ways, like the way we cut ties. I'm not trying to make sense. I've cut too many ties, am I right?
That's where some of the bands first got recorded, at Fanshawe at MIA. A guy named Tom Lodge was a DJ in the UK when they did the pirate radio broadcasts. And Tom came to London and he started the MIA program.
It's easy to say that, like being a graduate of MIA, but I would refer to it as more of a launching pad, because there's been a lot of projects that have come out of that haven't like survived.
It's kind of like its own little community, right?
Yeah.
Where you like network. I mean, I wasn't in MIA, but I've been around all these guys for a while now, and everyone kind of knows each other and works together, and like you said,
like everyone just keeps going. Like even if a band only lasts for 2 years, there's going to be another one. Like there's going to be a new one, like right as they go out, like because of MIA, I would assume.
I think it's like impossible to even talk about the London music scene without talking about like Fanshawe.
Yeah.
And that program.
I think just being in MIA was kind of inspiring, because they were like telling you like, go do music. So like your homework was to make music, you know?
Yeah, it was like part of their projects were actually like go meet people in the program and start playing stuff together. So
it was like really encouraging.
Like you can go into MIA and not really like do anything with it, but like
a lot of people do too.
A lot of people do, but if you go in with like a really good attitude and like the hunger for making music and doing good stuff, then I think it's great.
I mean, that's how we formed through MIA. So I think that has a really big part. A lot of the bands that are in like the London music scene, they all like kind of formed in MIA. Because people come for the program and then they stay because they like people like us. Like, I mean, like I graduated last year, but I'm still here because of the band and stuff. So people like myself come for the program and then stay for the scene. I don't know.
Community is just really close knit, and it's really easy to learn when you're working with people that are your age. I find, and like that's the best part of MIA. Like you have a huge range of talents and stuff.
Me, like when I came into MIA, I was just playing by myself at the time, like an acoustic guitar. Then I started going to all of these rock shows with like bands like the Baxters, like these great bands. And then I was like, I want to be in a band. And then this school assignment, we had Share the Land. We had to, I got told to make a band, so.
You get to jam with like so many different people. It's like it's almost just like a matter of time until you find a couple people that you sort of click with. Like everyone plays on each other's projects. Everyone jams with each other on weekends or whatever. So you obviously find some people that you get along with and that you maybe share influences with and stuff like. That's kind of how we started. So
yeah, it's like you build the friendship around something that you all love. So it's like really good friendships too now that we have. So.
And then the MIA guys kind of like took us under their wing. Like we were like the little brothers or something.
Yeah, it was awesome. We were like panicking because we had no drummer, and then just a couple of those guys that we know just
stepped up to the plate. Yeah, they were happy to offer and stuff. Like, yeah, it is awesome.
That's like a really like unique, I don't know, like community thing. Like they were willing to learn our songs and play with us.
Yeah.
A big influence of MIA was the guest room. It was a student house that our buddies in O Geronimo had, and they made a venue out of the basement.
Like, if you're talking about getting inspired in London, I'd say guest room is huge.
Yeah. It's not, like, they don't do it anymore, but it was a monthly house party with bands, basically, in the basement.
Yep.
And it was just awesome.
Yeah, they'd book bands from outside MIA, inside MIA, or whatever, and then they cram them all into a basement, like we said, not much bigger than this one, and you just go and play, and like all your friends would be there, like people you hadn't met. It was perfect. It was like
met a lot of people.
Yeah, it was a great way to meet other people, meet other bands, play with other bands, meet bands that you sound good with, and like build bills in other, at bars and other places. You know,
It's basically a party full of musicians.
Like my old place was, we used to call it the guest room. It was like a venue within London. We played it probably like twice.
Yeah.
But like the major difference is alcohol. Like you can't bring your own booze to a bar, but when you're playing a house show, the liquor's running like a stream.
Yes.
To be honest, like the most people I've ever seen out at a local show, in the past year, like have been here.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah, that one we threw at the beginning of last year, beginning of 2014. It was like there was like 250 people here.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like 100 more. Yeah, 100 more. But it was a good amount of people.
Yeah.
I think like London is basically surviving off these house shows right now.
If you ever go to one of Nick Reeson's house shows, you're just like,
you see the family aspect. That's the family aspect.
His family is there. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of success in London, and it's mainly from when we do house shows, we play like in someone's basement, stuff like that, rather than at a venue where you have to pay $10 to see bands and stuff. And it sucks having to ask your friends like, oh hey, you want to pay $10 to see my band? Here, buy a ticket. No, like no one cares. Fucking it's best when you can just get 100 people in a shitty small basement like this and you just do your thing. Kind of like you dictate your own rules, like you respect the venue and stuff, like respect the house, and but you can just do whatever, right? Like, and it's great for all ages because kids can just come out, like bring their own booze, whatever, like have a good time, and no one's like trying to get them charged for drinking underage and stuff like that.
There's several locations in London who have opened themselves up to have local bands play, to have underage shows at these houses, and sort of circumvent these problems imposed by bars prioritizing making a profit over, allowing a creative outlet for the youth of London.
The problem that we have in London is that there aren't a lot of all ages venues where local bands could just play all ages, and that's kind of been the thing that worked for London was you get kids going out who are 14 years old who love these bands. They start playing in bands. They keep bringing out their friends, and you know, they grow up with the scene and the bands.
A lot of bars used to, like 10 years ago, used to do a lot of all ages shows. They were really, really popular. And I know that, talking to a couple of promoters now, that they don't really do them anymore for two reasons. One, they weren't getting enough kids anymore. The kids really didn't really give a crap anymore. And two, any kids that were coming out were trying to get drunk anyway. So, but I mean, I always thought it was such a cool idea, because if I had been 15, 16 years old and wanting to see a band, the only way to see a band was to try to sneak into a bar, and I didn't have access to anything like that, so I never ever saw anything like that. But to be able to go out and see, when you're 15, to go see the Forgotten Rebels, or go see any band that's from Hamilton or Toronto or something playing, Call the Office, Danko Jones, or whatever the band is, right? And you go see them when you're 15 or 16 years old. That's awesome.
Every show that I do, I try to make it all ages, because even if there's 4 kids that are coming out, it's still worthwhile. I don't see a reason not to. It doesn't really cost all that much money. It's just extra work for people who don't want to do that extra work sometimes. But then there's also people who physically can't, or clubs that physically can't, or it's policy. But I try to make every show all ages. I mean, the Blackshire's done a couple here and there, and same as like APK has been doing a lot of all ages stuff now, which is good, because what I mean, we don't have all ages venue. I mean, we don't have a 200 to 400 capacity venue that books 3 nights a week, all local bands, who, it doesn't cost you anything to rent it out, and you can have kids come in.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the music hall, if your show's all ages, I mean, with music hall, you still have to pay for venue rental and all that stuff. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to make it work.
But it affected us. Like, when we came to London, we were underage. Like, we all started school when we were 18.
Right.
So we could only really play like the music club and Rum Runners.
Yeah.
We got in some other places. It was kind of sketchy. Like,
it was super sketchy. One time in Windsor, I had to leave right after we played, because I was still 18.
Yeah.
So they kicked me out. But
that was a struggle.
Yeah, it was pretty bad on us. And like Dan was saying, a huge part of our poll is like the all ages people. So like whenever we always try to kind of go for the all ages crowd. For our EP release, we had a house show for it, so all the underage kids could come and stuff, and it was awesome for that.
Yeah.
Then there's always like huge parties afterwards too, like at the house, because you can't like really party for a long time at bars afterwards, because bars close.
Right.
But houses don't close unless people kick you out. But
Never happened.
no.
But also, like, there's also a lack of equipment when you go to house shows too. It's just like more about the experience than it is really about the technical.
You can play in a basement to 50 people a couple of times, and then the first time you kind of go out and do like a real show in London at like a venue, it's not really like it's your first show ever, right? So it's not really like you're having band practice, but it's not really like you're playing like a legit big bar show.
There's some good jump off venues though. I'd say like the Roxbury is a fantastic bar for that kind of thing. I mean, Cam and I were talking actually on the way up here, funnily enough, about the Roxbury and how I'm pretty sure the first time we ever got paid was a show there, and so you get $50 and a pitcher of beer.
It was our first show.
Yeah.
We played at the Roxbury and we got $50. And up until that point, I'd never been paid for any.
No, and we'd never really.
Shows, so I was just like, this is
fucking cool.
That's
Yeah.
We've got a whole pitcher of beer. Yeah. And then we'd rally.
That's a good use. But they're cool there. Like they'll take anybody, and they're still willing to shell out. Like honestly, a bar that's willing to pay every band $50 out of their own pocket, just like right from the start.
Yeah,
It's
just
not
for showing up.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's not too common, and they're, like I said, they're easygoing. So like there are certain places in London where you can at least start out and like be like, oh, I played here, like maybe get some videos together and stuff and show people what you got.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one good thing about Mike Manuel and Dimitri at the Music Hall is they're the first people to reinvest into the venue, whether it's on other shows or, new production gear, whether sound and lights. I mean, almost every week when I go in there, there's some new toy that they've got that I don't know anything about, and it could be like an extra little sensor on a strobe light that does something, or an EQ. So it helps doing, better the venue and better the product, but also bring in other shows. Absolutely.
the Blackshire pub or the Shire or whatever it's called these days is and everyone who's involved in making that, everyone who's involved with that bar is doing great things for the city and are really trying to
push that. Yeah.
I definitely think like we said, the Blackshire, because it's like they're so good to bands there, and you can always guarantee like a really good crowd there.
I'd be happy if I was a band touring it and we found something like a Blackshire in another city where they like take care of you a bit, you have a nice place to play, people come, you know?
All around good time.
Yeah.
I also think Rum Runners, has been really helpful. Like with all those it's called like the late show that they do every Friday night, and they always have some really sweet local bands. And then sometimes what they'll do is they'll get a really cool headliner, and then they'll get local London bands to open up for that, for that really cool headliner, which opens up doors for the London band, which is really cool.
I mean, Rum Runners is doing it now. We do this late show series every Friday night, which is really cool. Yeah, it's 3 local or Southern Ontario or wherever, depending, developing bands for $5. I mean, every band gets paid from the house and cheap drinks, and it's just kind of a, hey, come drink and listen to music and socialize. And it's been really cool so far.
Callie Office is a great place to play. Rum Runners is awesome. It's an awesome room, and they're really good about opening it up once a week and letting a bunch of local bands play there and put on a show in such a nice, big room.
It's a great place to play.
Love's gonna find me. Love's gonna find me soon. And I can't promise her perfection.
I mean, there was a lot of bands that would even come to London before they would go to the a major city like Toronto, because London would take a chance on them. They would get booked into the Cedar Lounge or the Blue Boot or Callie Office or even the York Hotel back then. The York, which is Callie Office, right?
It's a good road stop for touring bands. That's a good way of putting it. And we get a lot of opportunities to play with sometimes American touring bands and a lot of touring bands going east and west, because they're always going to want to play either Windsor or London, and then they usually choose between Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, and then go to Toronto. So for that reason, geographically, I guess it's a good spot to play. And we have a lot of different venues that cater to a lot of different genres, so it doesn't matter which kind of touring band you are, there's going to be an opportunity for you to play.
Just the geography of it, and how you're pretty close. You can drive an hour and you're in, I don't know, Guelph or Waterloo, Kitchener, all these different places. It makes touring when you're starting off, just you can do a week on the 401 and play a different city to completely different people, different promoters every single night. Whereas if you go somewhere else in Canada, you might have to drive 9 hours just to get to the next city, right? So that geography, I think, is huge.
So many incredible bands coming out from this area who are now starting to tour. I mean, Ivory Hours, Texas King, Big Lonely, OCD, who are technically Toronto, I guess now, but still London. And then there's a bunch of metal bands and metalcore bands and folk, and they're all touring and they're all doing something, and people are starting to pay attention.
It's continuously humbling, I find, to be in the presence of some really talented people that are really doing different stuff.
So we were all immersed in this tiny community, right, where everybody supports everybody. If you play a show, almost all your MIA family come out to check it out, everybody's supporting each other and stuff, which is an unreal thing for a band to have at the beginning of what they're trying to do, because a lot of bands don't get that at all. It's the only people who come out to their shows are their closest friends and their parents, right? And that's it. It's great, but it doesn't make you want to keep pushing. In some ways, maybe I could be wrong. That's just in my opinion. It's it helped to have a bunch of people our age just automatically come out and want to see what we're doing.
Yeah. We went from having a lot, very few people at our shows, and now we're blown away when we play here at home. Sometimes the people who come out, it's great. So
tons of cool people.
2 years, yeah, it's like the greatest home city.
It's just, I don't know, it's gotten a lot more accepting. There's a lot, like, different people out there.
I bring my mother out to shows sometimes, and she's like 55, and recently like brought her out to a few shows, and people have been like really accepting, but like won't judge her for being a 50-year-old woman like at a show.
It's definitely more community feel, you know.
Yeah.
Feel at home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
out of town bands usually feel at home when they come here. I feel at least.
Yeah, I've heard that quite a bit.
They enjoy it a lot.
Every time we play the APK, you can't turn the corner without seeing a friendly face. It's just, yeah, it's nice.
Brandon Eady is filling the London Music Hall with all sorts of stuff on a regular basis, so like it's never boring. London's a good city for that, I think. There's always something cool coming through at some point.
I think that like through my experience, and I've only been a part of the London music scene for a couple of years. I think that like, and it's pretty cliche, but the only thing constant is change, and like even in just the past couple of years, it's been like this is the hot spot, and that is the hot spot, and this is the place to play, and no, that is, and it changes like all the time. So I think like it's hard. Not only is it hard to predict the future, I think that like it's just as of right now, it's just constantly ever changing, and maybe that's the way London's supposed to be.
It was a huge change from Toronto to London in 1969. It was like going out to see the Beverly Hillbillies. It was that bad. It was like going to a hick town. But in the London punk scene, it sort of started as a loft party. I wasn't part of that. You had to be in the know. It was the art community, the art and the gay community that sort of helped the punk community along.
Like London had a super thriving punk scene here in the 80s.
There's always just been that key element of punk. Like there's always punk bands coming from London.
The punk movement started late December 77 in London, essentially. That's when the Demics formed and played their first gig. It was at a loft party.
I came from like a hardcore like metal type scene, so it was a little different coming into this, because I mean when I started out, you didn't really see too many indie rock shows, so I saw these guys. Actually I ran into them in Toronto. I knew Phil from the past, so. And it was just fell in love with the band, came back to London and realized indie rock kind of came back. It wasn't there when I left. It was definitely a lot of hardcore, a lot of metal, a lot of punk shows, not much else. And it changed, and it's pretty sweet now. I mean, you can pretty much, as a band, get a show anywhere, as any genre. So London's grown a lot in the past 5-10 years.
My personal attitude about music is how multifaceted the London music scenes are. So
Oh, you won't get money for that whiskey bar. Bar possession, don't you be worried about that, yeah. Now's the time to live with no regrets.
Street. Mike Niederman put that on, so that was the first local punk band, December 77. From there, they played at the York Hotel, which is now called the Office.
Collie Office has a place in my heart. I saw Negative approach there, which was unbelievable.
Collie Office has a bit of a walk-in. I think it's because it's like it's a long time known bar. Like it's been around for a long time, and people outside the city will be like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of Collie Office."
And I tried, like it was the Embassy and Collie Office at the same time, and then it was the Salt Lounge, which we had for a while, and Collie Office. And now, I mean, with the Black Shire and everything else, it's always really cool because you have a hub for local bands.
Yeah.
This is a big town with a small town mentality. It's been accused of that on many occasions, but I mean, I love this town.
I don't know, it's just a lot of neat bands here. It's just a variety of everything. Every show you go to, it's just, there's always something different.
London's good.
really good,
It's a
but
good city. Good city for music, honestly.
It's very hard. It's a lot easier to go from working up in London and then going to Toronto and being able to come back here without having to, like, you know, break ground.
There's never really that huge like competitive thing. Everyone was like so supportive and just helping each other get like where they needed to be, which is why I think it's thriving.
Mama said, son, go out and clean that yard.